visit to Africa. I'm joined by Yinka Adegoke. He is the African editor with the online news outlet Quartz. Good to see you in New York City. Thanks for joining us, sir. Let me start with this. The trip to Africa for President Obama, a lot is being made, first of all, why he went or the reasons why. But I'm more focused on, was the trip successful and how do we measure success?
I think we can call it a success. He had a huge impact. I don't quite remember a presidential visit to the continent that has risen so much excitement and so much energy, particularly with young Africans. In terms of the impact it has made on the continent, it's definitely been a success.
He talks about Kenya being at a crossroads, and I guess my question is, what does that mean, and what could or what can the U.S. actually do to help on the economic front?
Well, here's the thing with Kenya. Kenya is a really interesting country right now for a number of reasons. It has a real strategic importance for security reasons for the United States. It's it's smack bang in the middle of this Horn of Africa kind of issue with Al-Shabaab, and they have no doubt had to deal with some terrorist attack tragedies themselves. And then it's also one of the more interesting countries in terms of innovation and entrepreneurship that has come up in the over the last decade. It's one of the technology hubs of the continent, particularly Nairobi. And there's been a lot of progress. The country has made great progress over the last few years. The economy is growing fast. It's generally outside of the security issues, a safe country. And as we know, he has that special relationship with the president, the current president right now.
You mentioned the past decade, and I guess one of the issues has been to build basic infrastructure, right? Water, electricity, plumbing, sewer, airports, roads, bridges. I mean, these are things that a lot of us, for example, would take for granted over here. The president has called on electricity access to double in Africa. I've heard this before. What's the update on it, and how realistic is that?
Electricity is a huge issue right across the continent. Many of the cities have grown faster than the infrastructures that have been in place for decades. And I think President Obama realized this and initiated the Power Africa project. And it's had some success, but it hasn't quite hit the targets it hoped to meet. It started out sort of not quite doubling in its first year as it hoped. The president last year moved that target forward a bit to be tripled to 30,000 megawatts. And they're still working on this.
Yinka, what's needed to get there? Is it just as simple as money, or is it about reforms? Is it about governments trying to say, hey, look, the world, we need money to build out this infrastructure. What's preventing all this from happening a little faster?
I think a lot of people have criticized the idea that so much of the focus of the move to bring electricity to the 600 million people who don't have electricity on the continent has just been on this sort of traditional power grid structure. But more recently, you're seeing more people talking about the different forms of power supply, i.e. solar, wind energy. Kenya just last week, or last month, I should say, introduced wind power farms that would bring power to up to 20% of the country. And that hasn't happened before. There needs to be more of that kind of innovation away from the traditional power grid structure. The same with solar, where people are using their mobile phones to pay for solar energy, in a different kind of way now. This is
a plethora of technological advances. I guess it's enabling this sort of leap.
And they need to be green and renewable as well.
I have time for one more question before the producer shuts off the lights to us. The competition between the U.S. and China, a lot's been made of it. I consider it kind of healthy. I want to get your take on it, and if this does not perhaps encourage or instigate the White House to perhaps do more, at least in the next 2 years, or maybe even beyond that.
Yeah, I think that's a fair comment. I think the United States has tended to if you like, implement its relationship with many African countries through this prism of security. The focus has been on security, and in the past it would have been on aid as well. And China has had a more sort of eye-to-eye relationship, if you like. Like, what do you want? How can we work together? Rather than sort of instructing these countries what they want to do. Now I think the United States gets this more. They're more active. They're bringing some of their own strengths in terms of things like we talked earlier just about innovation and technology hubs. A lot of those partnerships are with American partners. So you're going to see more American companies and American partners getting involved on the continent more so than before. That is not to say that China will ever be excluded. There are plenty of great partnerships with infrastructure, with innovation as well. So it's great for the continent.
Yeah, I guess it just
we'll see from both sides.
It shows you how small the world really is. Yinka from the Quartz, good to see you. Thanks for spending a few minutes with us.